Welcome to the NHL Wraparound podcast featuring Neil Smith, President General Manager of the 1994 Stanley Cup champion New York Rangers, and longtime ESPN NHL veteran Vic Morren. Together, they share no-nonsense opinions on news and issues around the National Hockey League. Whether you're a casual or diehard fan, each episode of NHL Wraparound will leave you more informed. Now, here's your hosts, Neil and Vic.
Welcome to NHL Wraparound for Friday, the 9th of January, 2026. Vic Morren, Neil Smith, and the Olympics are 4 weeks away. And what better time to have the general manager of Team USA and, of course, the second best club in the NHL in the league standings as of Friday morning. Bill Guerin will be joining us. But first, Neil, I have to tell you that my back is hurting from having to carry short shifts on Wednesday while you were having a leisurely 12-hour drive from Jersey to South Carolina. But I realized I really can't give you that much flack today because you are celebrating your 50th birthday. And right after midnight, you got your first present courtesy of Matt Zuccarello, whose overtime goal for Minnesota in Seattle gave you your first perfect 5-0 night on Smith's Picks on NHLWraparound.com. You find it in our blog section. So congratulations and happy birthday.
Thank you, sir. And I've been waiting all season to try to get a 5-0 night. It's difficult to do because no matter how much you think that these 5 teams couldn't possibly lose, or these 3 teams or these 2 teams, somebody always ends up screwing it up. And so you end up with never a perfect night. But I was glad to see Matt Zuccarello of Bill Guerin's team, by the way, put that one in for us. And when he is on our show later, I will thank him for making my night perfect.
And hopefully the rest of the day goes perfect for you. But before we have Bill Guerin on, 3 things you need to pay attention to. And the number 5 is going to be prominent here. Patrick Kane becomes the 50th member of the 500 goal club. It was an empty netter in a 5-1 win for the Red Wings over the Vancouver Canucks. Kane becomes the 5th American after Mike Modano, Keith Tkachuk, Jeremy Roenick, and Joe Mullen to score 500 goals, and the 5th to do so into an empty net. So for the player that is, I think, pretty unquestionably the greatest American ever, it took him a while, but great job with this achievement.
And it certainly is. And Patrick Kane has been a great player in the NHL. The Buffalo native came into the league, and people thought maybe he would be too small to play back in the time when he entered the league. He certainly showed them wrong, scored the overtime winning goal to give Chicago Blackhawks their first Stanley Cup since 1961, did that in Philadelphia, and has done a lot of other amazing things in his career. So number 88, congratulations, and you're where you belong.
I know you saw Mark Messier's 500th career goal coming against Rick Tabaracci. Did you see any others in person?
I saw Mike Gartner's 600th goal.
Okay.
I don't remember if I saw anybody else's, but I do remember seeing those 2. And just think about it. It's 500 more than we've scored. So, no, it's a tremendous feat. It really is. And especially in today's era where the goalies are bigger, the scores aren't hugely high. You know, one could argue that when Mike Modano played, the scores were a lot bigger. There were a lot more goals going in at that point in Joe Mullen's day as well, although he was a great scorer for the Calgary Flames and later Pittsburgh. It's just a phenomenal feat no matter what era you come from.
I saw 2 500th goals. I saw Mike Bossi's, which was into an empty net, the New York Islanders, and of course he was one of the others to do so. And I saw Guy Lafleur's in New Jersey.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And I may have seen those too and just don't remember them. I'm sure I saw Bossies because, I watched almost all the Islander games, but it is a phenomenal feat and one that should be celebrated because it's so rare.
Kane is a legend, and let's talk about a future legend for item number 2. Macklin celebrating the San Jose Sharks a virtuoso performance in Hollywood in a 4-3 win for the Sharks in LA on Wednesday. He gets the game-tying goal with a nifty keep-in at the blue line, then out-finessed Warren Foegele and then out-muscled him into the slot to score the game-tying goal, and then broke up a play at his own blue line, stripped Adrian Kempe of the puck, led to a 2-on-1, and he set up William Eklund for the overtime winner. But I think the question here now, Neil, San Jose is sitting in a wild card position. And if they make the playoffs, he's got to get very strong consideration for most valuable player.
I think he would get consideration to be in the top 3 for that, along with obviously Nate McKinnon is going to be in there. We can say that right now. There's no doubt that he'll be in there. I'm not sure that he would be able to win it because his team, if they get into the playoffs, will probably barely get into the playoffs, which is fine. That would be a huge accomplishment. But you're right. I mean, he is driving the San Jose Sharks train by himself, meaning that he is by far their best player and is putting on performances night after night, which are just outstanding. And this is what is propelling the Sharks towards a possible playoff spot.
And certainly he's going to get even more attention, having been named to the Canadian Olympic team. Item number 3. What is surprising you more at this point? The Buffalo Sabres, 12-1-0 in their last 13. They're in a wild card spot as of Friday morning. Or the Winnipeg Jets, winless in their last 11. They have lost 10 of those games by 1 goal or 1 goal plus an empty netter. They are working hard, but what's working in Buffalo isn't working in Winnipeg.
And, I'm surprised at both of these, obviously, and that's why you've made a good point here by bringing up these two teams and at opposite ends of the spectrum. We all expected that Winnipeg would be a really good team this season. After winning the President's Trophy last year, we thought, well, maybe they'll improve a little bit and they'll get even further. Instead, for whatever reason, they've gone the opposite direction. They've had their best player, the MVP of the league, hurt for a while. That's Connor Hellebuck. He's back in the net now, seems to be playing well. The good news for Winnipeg Jets is when you lose by 1 goal, you know you're close enough that if you just do some things differently and make some changes, that you can get over the hump. And I think that's the good news for the Winnipeg Jets, that they're still going to be there and they should try to keep confidence in themselves. For the Buffalo Sabres, it's been a fantastic turnaround for them this season. All of a sudden, to go from, it looked like a sure 15th straight non-playoff season to now what looks like it could be a playoff year for once in Western New York. Lindy Ruff, who had a lot of naysayers around him, not only in New Jersey when he was there, but now again in his second stint in Buffalo. People are singing his praises now, and they should be. So things are going good in Buffalo. Both cold places, by the way, Buffalo and Winnipeg. If you're there in the wintertime, you're seeing a ton of snow. But tough for Winnipeg, great for Buffalo.
I want to talk a little bit more about Buffalo because in situations like this, you win 12 of 13, you start doing things that probably they were doing in the 14 years that they haven't made the playoffs. Late in the game in Madison Square Garden, they had a 3-2 lead late in the third period. Peyton Krebs takes a double minor high-sticking penalty, and in years past, they probably would have been tied and then beaten late by virtue of 2 power play goals. But in this situation, just 14 seconds after the power play for the Rangers started, Matthias Samuelsson with a shorthanded goal, they added an empty netter, and they end up with the 5-2 win. And for Winnipeg, you start to do things that are untypical for you. And on Tuesday, against Vegas, they had a 2-goal lead late in the second period, gave up a goal to Mark Stone. The Golden Knights wound up tying that game. Winnipeg went back ahead, and they gave the tying goal back to Vegas 59 seconds later and lost in overtime. On Thursday, they're up 2 goals again. Connor McDavid scores last minute of the second period, and you could just feel everything starting to tense up once again. The Jets only got 2 shots in the last 27 minutes of that game. And you've seen this so often in your career that when it starts going downhill, it is almost impossible to reverse it. And I think that's where Winnipeg is right now.
Well, and I think that's where the New York Rangers are as well. And I wanted to comment that game at Madison Square Garden last night, where the Buffalo Sabres scored the shorthanded dagger into the heart of the Rangers at the beginning of that power play with an impossible shot over Jonathan Quick's shoulder by Samuelsson. You know, they were playing the right team, the Buffalo Sabres were, to put themselves in that situation and still come out with the win, because the New York Rangers are a version of what you're talking about with Winnipeg. They can't do anything right. As soon as they start to do something right, they make it go wrong. They're in tough sledding, the New York Rangers, because they're just not good enough and they can't overcome their bad play at times. But back to Winnipeg, I agree with you that, you know, you just start to squeeze your stick so tight. And whenever you squeeze something tight, you lose it. And it's the same thing with, just think about trying to hold water in your hands. If you squeeze your fingers tight, you lose all the water. It's the same thing with a hockey stick. And for the Buffalo Sabres, obviously they're playing a lot looser than they've ever played. Last night in that game at Madison Square Garden, they should have been beaten the way they played in the first and second period. I thought that they would probably get beat because it seemed to be sliding the other way. But Buffalo was able, as you said, to put a dagger into the heart of the Rangers and came out with the big victory.
The Winnipeg Jets will get their opportunity to get right back on the horse. They host the LA Kings Friday. And even though you're coming off of your 5-0 night, I'm going to issue my own prediction. And I'm going to say Winnipeg finally gets into the win column.
Well, let's see what happens, because, you know, these predictions, they are really annoying. Anybody that follows the NHL, and all of you out there listening or watching, you know how hard it is to predict whether a team's going to win or not. Even when it's Colorado, they just lost 2 in a row before winning last night. It is just hard to say who's going to win. This league is so even. It's so equal on so many nights that predicting winners is, you gotta take it and laugh about it, because if you get 5-0, you're lucky. If you get 0-5, you're just unlucky. Last night I happened to be lucky on the eve of my birthday.
Well, that's right. And of course, as we said right at the head of this segment, you're 5-0, a little bit after midnight Eastern time. And that will wrap up 3 things you need to pay attention to. Now, let's welcome in Team USA and Minnesota Wild GM Bill Guerin.
Well, it's great to bring Bill Guerin back onto NHL Wraparound. He was gracious enough to come back on at a very good time in his management career, I would imagine, Bill, because your Minnesota Wild are the second best team in the NHL today, and you're the general manager of Team USA going into the Olympics, so all must be pretty good at the Guerin house.
Hey, Neil, you know how this job goes. It goes hour by hour. There's your business life and your home life. So who knows what the hell can happen? But as of right now, things are very good. And the Minnesota Wild team is playing really well. Happy to have the U.S. team picked and that process behind me now. But yeah, very, very happy, especially with the road trip our guys just went on. 2 weeks, 7 games, because we just had the World Juniors in Minnesota. So very happy with how the guys performed on a long, road trip that was a real grind.
Well, Bill, on a personal note, like, I know you don't live in Minneapolis, but there's been a little bit of unrest go on this week earlier there. This has happened before in Minnesota and Minneapolis, where, I always thought going there to to play against the North Stars, and nothing bad ever went on there. But is your family, how does that affect you guys and your players' families and everybody around the Wild?
Yeah, well, thanks for asking, Neil. And it's just been a crazy time here the last couple days. And first of all, my family is fine. Our players and their families and all our staff, we're all good. Just when things happen like this, that's all you really want to do is focus on making sure that everybody is okay and in safe spots. I have a daughter who lives in downtown Minneapolis. She's all good. My son lives in St. Paul. And the main thing is that everybody's safe, and then we can focus on hockey.
Yeah, and that it's a shame that this stuff goes on in any city, but it's good that it doesn't have any negative effects on the Wild, your players, your staff, your fans, everybody, and just hope that it never happens again, and that it's corrected. So, Bill, it must be great to have the Wild going really well during a time when you're focused on the Olympic team. You've picked the team, but you're getting anxious, I'm sure, to get over there and get playing. You've got a really good team with the Olympic team, with Team USA. But the pressure of the Wild would be off of you right now. Whereas if you weren't doing very well and you also had this other role, people might be grumbling that is Bill Guerin spending too much time with Team USA and not on the Wild and so on. So I guess it's a great bonus for you that your own team is doing well. So, everything's good.
Yeah, you know what? I think the big key is on both sides, the Wild and Team USA. I have incredible people helping me. I have a team of people at the Wild that day in and day out are helping me get things accomplished, handling a lot of the day-to-day happenings that go on with the Wild. With Team USA, I've got Chris Kelleher, Chris Drury, Tom Fitzgerald, Billy Zito, Stan Bowman. Everybody at USA Hockey, John Van Beesbrook and Pat Kelleher. Everybody's just chipping in. So on both ends, it's been very collaborative, team effort, and I'm lucky to have the people I have around me.
Bill, so let's talk about the construction of this team. 21 of your players, of the 23 that were in the Four Nations, are part of this Olympic team. And now you've added, because the rosters are 25 for the Olympics, Tage Thompson, Clayton Keller, Seth Jones, and Quinn Hughes, who was not able to play in the Four Nations due to injury. So is there a particular way you're looking for this team to play? I know everybody wants to play fast. It's going to be a smaller ice surface over there. So can you get into a little bit how you want to see this team perform when it's at its optimum level?
Yeah, you're not wrong on the speed aspect. Listen, we've got to be able to play with speed. We've got to be able to check. Our special teams are going to have to be good, so we had to have players that are elite in those roles as well. We have to be able to play any way you want to play it. We're going to have to be able to do that. But for us, it's Sully always said, speed, skill, and will. And those are the three components that we looked at for players. I think we checked the boxes on the guys, and it's going to be a good team. And I always say this, like, we can be as good as we want to be on paper. We have to go and play the games. We have to go through the process and earn anything that we're going to get. So go over there with a very business-like attitude and mindset.
Your hair was a little bit longer when you made the calls to the players that were being named to the team. And you also had to go through making some of the disappointing calls as well. And of course, once people are overlooked or are not chosen for the team, they're looked at as snubs. And the math says you can only appoint a certain number of players to the team. So of course, there are going to be some players that are left out. How do you, as the GM, just tune out all the noise of the people that are grumbling in the media and the fans that this one should have made it and that one should have made it? How do you tune that stuff out?
I don't even let it get started, to be honest with you. First of all, like, I was never going to make everybody happy anyways. So that you have to understand that. Like, I mean, I could switch out 10 guys right now for 10 other guys, and, you know, people are going to still be unhappy. So I really can't let that affect anything. You use a word, overlooked. Nobody was overlooked. We looked at everybody, and we made some, you know, some difficult decisions. And you know what? When you make a tough decision, sometimes it's really tough getting there, and it's really tough making that phone call. But when you make the decision, stand by it and then move ahead. And that's what I do. I don't read the negativity. I don't even read the positive stuff. I just stay away from it because I've made my decision. I don't get into comments and this and that because, I mean, I don't know who's making those, and that's just all negative stuff.
Yeah.
I like to focus on the positive and the guys that we picked, and, you know, just kind of go from there.
Bill, would you agree when you're doing these jobs, it's not much different with the National Hockey League team because you've got to make decisions there too, who you send down, who you keep up, who you trade, who you don't trade. I've always felt that if your philosophy was sound and your thought process was pure, that you can sleep at night because you didn't make a decision based on anything other than trying to do the very best you could for the team you're putting together. There was no prejudices. There was no, you know, favors given to people. There was none of that. It was all done the right way and the pure way. I wonder if is that something that, you know, goes in your mind? I would imagine it has to.
I totally agree. And, you know, in Minnesota with Team USA, we had a process, and it was you know, very detailed, and, you know, it was a collaboration, and we made our decisions. And yeah, I slept well at night. I'll tell you when I didn't sleep was leading up to the phone calls telling guys they weren't on the team, but I knew I had my decisions made already. The other part of it is the treatment of the people and being honest with them. You can deliver good news or bad news, but either way, I think you have to be honest with people and just be upfront. And like I said, they might not like the message, but at least you're giving them the truth.
Bill, last one for me regarding the Olympic team. You played in 3 Winter Olympic Games in 1998, 2002, where you won a silver medal, and 2006. And of course, NHL players have not been to the Olympics since Sochi in 2014. You have 2 players that have played in Olympic Games. So between you and those 2 players that you're going to share with our listeners, what kind of message do you give to this team? Because obviously the majority of players that are on your squad have not experienced Olympic hockey before.
I guess the message would be like, this is not the NHL. Things are very different. So let's just focus on what we can control, and that's the hockey. All we need to do is focus on the hockey. You know what? It's a very different environment staying in the village. You don't have your specific pregame meal. You might not have your usual nap time or whatever and all that stuff. We have to have the ability to kind of roll with the punches here because the Olympics are just a different thing. It's not just us. There's a whole other world going on out there than just the hockey. So let's just focus on what we can control.
How much will you count on the 2 players that have had Olympic experience to kind of share their experiences with the rest of the guys that haven't been there before?
Well, they're younger guys, Faber and Sanderson. And I think maybe it was a different time too, because it was during the COVID years. Yeah. So this could be very different than what they experienced even. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure there are little things here and there that they're going to be like, oh yeah, that was the same last time, or this was the same, you know, accommodations or food or this or that, or just the smallest little details. But it's just different. It is different.
And let's switch over to the NHL now for a minute and the Minnesota Wild and talk about the season you guys are having. A year ago, at some point last season, I ran into you at UBS Arena and you were playing the Islanders, and I looked at you and you weren't going through a good time at that point with your team. And I said, thank God you had that great start to the season. And you looked at me and said, oh, yeah, we'd be screwed by now if we hadn't had that great start. But this season, you didn't have a great start. You went 3-6-3 at a 5-game winless streak, and you've come all the way, turning it around to being second best in the entire league. Let our listeners know, like, what happened here? How did you turn this thing so quickly, other than the obvious of getting Quinn Hughes on your team, who's a great player? But there's more to it than that, I'm sure.
I'll be honest with you. During that time, I didn't know what was going on. I'm like, what the hell happened? Because like you said, a year before we came out of the gate so strong. I think we got away from who we really were. I don't think we were playing to our identity. I think we wanted a little bit easier road at the start. And John had a number of conversations with the players. I had a few conversations with some players, and the players had a players only meeting, which, sometimes those are BS and sometimes they're really good.
Yeah.
And this one was really good because I think the players really came to grips with what they needed to do in order to turn their season around and have a chance. And I think the coaches did a great job. The players did a great job, and they did it together. And I give them a lot of credit for kind of realizing what they needed to do to get back on track.
Do you feel that you were turning it around before the trade?
Yeah, definitely. I think we went 8-1-1 in November. So that was an indication to me that, okay, we have a good team. Like, I don't think you put together a full month like that if you're not capable of carrying that level of play the whole way through. To me, that was a sign that the guys were for real. They want to be a real team, taken seriously to compete for a championship. And then the Quinn Hughes deal became available. And that was the first week of December, maybe the second week of December. I forget the exact date, but it was early December when that became available. So they had proven to me that they were for real. And you know how it is. You're not just making trades all the time. You're actually running a big part of the business. And if the team is not performing well, you're going to take it in one direction. And if they're performing great, you're going to go in another direction. And you're going to help them. You're going to, supplement the team with more players or better players, or try to build. So they proved to me that they earned that. And if we kept going the same way as October all the way through, I don't know if that trade would have happened.
I have to ask you a GM question, since, it's my background, and obviously you sit in that chair now. You make the trade for Quinn Hughes, who wasn't going to re-sign in Vancouver, and that's why Vancouver decided to trade him. From what we hear in public, he said that he wasn't ready to sign an extension wherever he went other than Vancouver. And he, to this date, has not signed an extension with you guys. That's all factually out there. As the GM and the guy in charge, do you just create an environment and that's the best it can possibly be, and hope that at the end of the day that Quinn will want to stay in Minnesota? Is that how you do it? Because I know you're not going to put pressure on this kid in the middle of the season to sign a contract. So I would imagine that you guys and your coaching staff are just going to make the environment as best you can, and hopefully he will stay in Minnesota.
The best thing we can do is win. And that's what players want. They're going to make their money no matter where they go, but they want to win. Like Quinn Hughes wants to win. He's going to make a lot of money wherever he goes, so that's not an issue. A good culture, a winning environment, a good hockey market, Like all those things are things that we supply, and an opportunity to win, most importantly. And I think when we're talking about players, situations like this, that's really all we can do. It's too early to sign him to an extension. We have to wait till this summer. But even so, like, it's just not the time to talk about it. Let's let him get acclimated to his new surroundings and just play hockey. That's the best thing for right now.
Another contractual question. You signed Kaprizov this offseason to the biggest contract in the league, in the history of the league, and how is that? How's that been for you and your environment? Meaning the other players, how have they reacted to that? How has Kaprizov himself played in your mind, carrying this now? I mean, he's not getting paid this yet, but he's got that contract in his back pocket. Can you talk about that, Billy? Has there been your thoughts on that?
Hey, listen, I think, I don't ask the players, oh, hey, how do you feel about that?
No.
Okay. Because I know one thing, if we let them walk out the door, I know how they'd feel. So to me, it wasn't a matter of like, do we sign him? Do we let him go? We want to win. We're trying to win. He's one of the best players in the league. This is where salaries are going. You know what? We have him for the next 9 years. He's a huge part of our team. So, if we let him go or traded him or so whatever, that would have been a huge hole and impossible to replace. So very happy that he's signed the long-term deal. He's a big personality in the room too. The guys love him. I think we've got a really good thing going here with the group of guys that we have. They don't let, well, to me, being on the outside, I'm not in the room. They don't seem to let that stuff get in the way of their relationships and their how close and how bonded the team is.
Bill, you probably have one of the most well-rounded clubs in the entire NHL. Your goaltending with Jesper Wallstedt and Philip Gustafsson has been excellent. Your defense, led by Brock Faber, has been terrific. You've got Kaprizov, you've got Matt Boldy, you've got Zuccarello, Joel Eriksson. I mean, it's a terrific group that you have. But the team is in a very interesting position right now because you still have 38 games left in the regular season. And even though, yes, things can shift around, it looks pretty apparent that you're going to be seeing Dallas in the first round because both of you are well behind Colorado and nobody behind you is going to catch up. So as you take a look at the way the regular season is shaping up into the second half, is there any area in particular that you're looking to upgrade before we get to the trade deadline and, of course, leading into the playoffs?
We're always looking to get better. I like our goalies. I like our D. I like our forwards. Can we get deeper in certain positions? Yeah, absolutely we can. Center ice is always something that teams are craving. Defensive depth is something that teams always really need. I mean, you need 10 defensemen to get through the Stanley Cup Finals. So you're always looking to improve. I've got everything written down right here. I'll just text this over to you at who I'm looking at and where where we're gonna get. It's all right here.
Yeah, got it all. The game plan is here. Bill, this has been great. I'm sitting here listening to you and thinking, my goodness, this man could end up like Steve Yzerman and Brendan Shanahan one year. Do you remember that when they won both the gold medal and the Stanley Cup in the same season? I mean, we all talk about Ken Morrow because that was back when we were a lot younger, and he did something spectacular and went on to win 4 cups in a row, as well as a gold medal. And can you imagine the Islanders have so many great players back then, Billy, that Ken Morrow's number isn't retired?
It's incredible. It's incredible. Kenny's a great guy. I see him still out at the rink scouting and everything. I have his book. I have a copy of his new book. He was one of my heroes growing up. But yeah, my God, a gold medal, and then you rattle off 4 straight Stanley Cups. That's pretty good winning pedigree.
It sure is. But we wish you the same pedigree, and we'll be cheering for you in the Team USA and the Wild. And it's so exciting right now for you and your family and everybody else that's connected. So good luck, Bill, and thanks so much for giving us some time.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. Thanks, Vic. I appreciate you guys having me on, and wish you guys nothing but the best.
I always love having Bill Guerin on. It's the second time that he has appeared with us, and a little bit more on his plate this time than the first time around.
But I know as a GM, it's always easier to do anything when you're winning. It's just, you've got that little bit of relief going, and you've got, okay, I don't mind doing this because, things are good right now. They might not be good tomorrow or the next day, but they're good right now.
The thing was, he was already named the Team USA GM when we had him on last, but it gets real now with the Olympics less than a month away.
Yeah, right around the corner. For all of us, it's going to be an exciting time.
Let's hit some other items. And on Thursday, 3 things that kind of jumped off the page for me. Josh Manson, defenseman for the Colorado Avalanche, gets the Gordie Howe hat trick. His first career 4-point game in an 8-2 Avalanche win over the Ottawa Senators. He fought Tyler Klevin like 2 minutes into the game before getting on the score sheet. But in 12 seasons, never had a 4-point game, and quite a night for him against an Ottawa team that's got a lot of stuff going on right now. Not a lot of it good, but talk about chances of Manson putting up those numbers last night.
Yeah, and just another great night for the Colorado Avalanche in this series of great nights that they're having throughout this season. And you're right, things aren't good in Ottawa right now. They're not winning. They're not staying in that fight for those wild card spots, and they're going to have to pull it all together if they want to be one of those 2 wild card teams.
Goaltending has been an issue all season long. Merrilainen started, had to come back in to finish the game for Mad Sodard, and we have learned that James Reimer has signed a PTO with the club, with Linus Ullmark out on personal leave, and it's expected Reimer is going to sign with the Senators.
Yeah, there's something smelly going on there, and this is the stuff you face so as an NHL team that people don't understand. It's a small group of people trying to win in the NHL, but there's, stuff happens, personal stuff happens, and who knows what it is, but it can get in the way of a good season.
Let's talk Alexander Texier, who 24 hours ago, there's no way he makes this show. But on Thursday against Florida, his first career hat trick in a 6-2 win for the Canadiens over the Panthers, who were depleted by injuries. They didn't have Brad Marchand playing on Thursday night. And his hat trick came one night after his first career 3-point game, which was against the Calgary Flames on Wednesday. And you remember that he was traded to St. Louis by the Columbus Blue Jackets, played only 8 games for the Blues. They let him go. He comes on. He's playing top 6 forward minutes. He's got 7 goals, 7 assists in 22 games. And for a club like the Canadiens that have so much offensive pop, and now you add a guy that has never seen 20 goals in his NHL career, and he starts putting in goals. A lot of things going good in Montreal right now.
Yeah, and it's a great depth player for them to give them more depth. You always want secondary scoring when you're running a team, and Texier is giving that now to Marty St. Louis. It's amazing. I wonder how Doug Armstrong feels right now about, terminating Texier and then him going to Montreal, signing and doing this.
But you've seen it, that a player gets acquired and for whatever reason, things just don't work out and you wind up letting him go. And this is what the case has been here.
Yeah, and it can happen that way. I mean, the same thing with Brandon Saad. Things weren't working out well in St. Louis for him. He left and was a serviceable player for the Vegas Golden Knights.
How about Scott Lawton returning to Philadelphia? He scores a shorthanded goal with less than 6 minutes left in regulation to draw the Maple Leafs even with the Flyers. And then Easton Cowan, set up by John Tavares in overtime. The OT went less than 3 minutes. And I would invite anybody that was not able to watch that game last night, if you could find the entire overtime, maybe one of the most entertaining of the entire season, 2-1 win for the Maple Leafs, and they continue to improve and start to climb their way up the standings.
Yeah, and things are seeming to get better in Toronto. The machine is starting to look like it's rolling in the right direction, and we'll see. But for Scott Lawton, it must have been a great feeling to go back into Philadelphia after being traded to the Leafs at the deadline. Goes into Philadelphia and helps the Leafs come out of there with a victory.
You're talking about machines, and a machine that is not clicking right now is that of the New Jersey Devils, who have lost 3 consecutive games. They lost on Thursday in Pittsburgh. But I want to go back to Tuesday for a second because we didn't have the opportunity to talk about this on Wednesday. You were there. Jacob Markstrom plays the entire game in a 9-0 loss to the Islanders. It was 5-0 after the second period. And Sheldon Keefe has been questioned and has actually been criticized on some fronts. I mean, Henrik Lundqvist came right out on TNT and said that he disagreed with the decision to leave Markstrom in. Keefe said, I wanted him to battle his way through the rest of the game. But doesn't this harken back to something that happened with Patrick Roy in Montreal, December of 1995 against the Detroit Red Wings?
Absolutely. When it was 6-0 and finally he came out of the net and then told Ronald Corey, the president of the team, that he'd played his last game for the Montreal Canadiens, which meant that Réjean Houle, who was the GM, had to find a place to trade Patrick Roy. They ended up trading him, of course, to Colorado Avalanche, and we know the rest of the story. Interesting in that trade, too, Vic, the general manager of Colorado Avalanche, Pierre Lacroix, the former agent for Patrick Roy. So anyway, yeah, I was shocked that Sheldon Keefe left Markstrom in. I thought he was take him out in the first period. I was at that game. And when he left him in the whole game, I kept looking over to see if Jake Allen was actually on the bench or was he hurt. And then we had the situation in Chicago with our friend Jim Montgomery and Binnington.
Well, the interesting thing there is I think people were looking to say that Binnington didn't want to come out of the game and that Joel Hofer was kind of hiding behind a wall in order for Binnington to be able to stay in. But I guess what had happened was that Hofer was not ready to come in, was not properly equipped, and there's not enough room on the Chicago bench for the backup goaltender. So he was kind of off in a corner. So I think a lot of people trying to make something out of nothing here. Binnington wound up finishing the game after he gave up the 7th goal, stayed in, didn't give up anything else. So, but just all kinds of odd goaltender stuff going on around the league, right?
But Jim Montgomery definitely did wave to bring Binnington out.
Yeah.
And then he turned to his assistant coach and said, where's Hofer? And then the camera went on and showed Hofer was, you know, the way you get out of the bench in Chicago is it's right in the middle of the bench. You go down a little hallway to the dressing room. And Hofer was back there. It didn't look good for Jim Montgomery and the Blues.
No, but the still shot of Hofer peeking around the wall was pretty amusing, though.
Yeah, with his mask on.
Hey, but let's go back to Jersey for a second, because nothing feels right there. And yes, they are mixing in some wins here and there. They're not in a playoff position as we speak. And I think when we saw this club coming out of their 2022-23 season, they had the opening round win against the Rangers. They were kind of the shiny new toy on the block with the great transition game. They were a great half-ice team. And just like everything else, teams lock on. They adjust to you over time. So Is it the matter of play, or do you see something more going on, perhaps with a disconnect between the head coach and his players?
I think it's got to be a disconnect between the coaching staff and the players. I think the message isn't getting through because this is the NHL. Sheldon Keefe is a very experienced coach, a winning coach for that matter, 100-point seasons with Toronto. But the message is not getting through. The way the Devils are playing looks completely disjointed to me, and they've been outscored 12-1 in their last 2 games.
Let's move on. The 2027 Winter Classic will be held in Salt Lake City, date to be announced, but the Mammoth will host the Colorado Avalanche at Rice-Eccles Stadium. That is the home of the University of Utah, and I know how much you love these outdoor games, and especially the last Winter Classic, which was held in the tropical environment of Miami. But maybe this one will be a little bit more appealing to you, given it's going to be outdoors at the foot of the mountain. So you feel any better about this one?
Well, it'll be a little snowy contest, and it'll be like a real outdoor hockey game, like you see on a pond. You know, I'm not big on the outdoor games, and I'll tell you. Let me explain it to you. I think it's a great spectacle. I think it's really a great event. I don't like the fact that it means the same in the schedule as a normal game being played in one of the NHL arenas, because I just don't think the players can prepare properly to play in that environment the way they do at home. I mean, we just heard Bill Guerin say that everything at the Olympics is going to be different than it is in the NHL. So we've got to just take care of the hockey. I would imagine that's the message coaches tell players playing in the Winter Classic. Everything's different. It's not going to be the same. The only thing we can do is when we get onto the ice, take care of the hockey. And that must be what it is. But it's going to be fun to see them in Utah and see the snow. And maybe we'll have a game like the first game where it was snowing when Sidney Crosby went in on the shootout and won the game in snowy Buffalo.
Perhaps we will. Personnel notes. Carter Hart, Vegas Golden Knights, apparent left leg injury after giving up a goal on the only shot that he faced in the Golden Knights win over Columbus on Thursday. Travis Konechny of the Flyers did not return for the third period in their loss in overtime to Toronto. He had an upper body injury, and he scored the only Flyer goal in that game. As mentioned earlier, Brad Marchand missed Thursday's loss for the Panthers in Montreal with an undisclosed injury. And we'd mentioned Corey Perry on short shifts on Wednesday. He was put on non-roster playing status, and it has now been revealed that he is dealing with a family illness. Also, for the Edmonton Oilers, forward Adam Henrique, undisclosed injury. Seems like everything with Edmonton is undisclosed. Yeah. He's expected to be out until after the Olympic break, only had 2 shifts in Tuesday's win against Nashville. And let's talk some returns here, Mr. Smith. Evgeny Malkin comes back after missing 15 games with shoulder surgery. He had a goal against the New Jersey Devils in Thursday's win. For the Devils, defenseman Simon Nemec was activated from IR after missing 12 games with a lower body injury. For the New York Rangers, Captain JT Miller came back after missing 7 games in Thursday's loss against Buffalo. And Nathan Walker of the Blues came back after missing 16 games with an upper body injury, scored a goal in the Blues' loss to the Chicago Blackhawks.
And speaking of the Chicago Blackhawks, on a sad note, his number is retired and hangs in the rafters at the United Center. Number 1, that is Glenn Hall, passed away at age 94 on Wednesday. It was a fantastic Hall of Fame goaltender, mostly known for the Chicago Blackhawks, but also played in Detroit, and then near the end of his career, won the Conn Smythe Trophy in a losing cause for the St. Louis Blues, being beaten by the Montreal Canadiens. He will be missed. He had a long life and a great career.
We talk about records that are going to be untouchable. And I think we look at Wayne Gretzky's point totals. We look at the New York Islanders winning 19 consecutive Stanley Cup playoff series. And Glenn Hall started 502 consecutive regular season games, 552 if you include the Stanley Cup playoffs. And most notably, he got sick before every one of them, according to hockey lore.
He threw up before every game that he played. I think that's true lore. I really do.
He won the Calder Trophy in 1956, three-time Vezina Trophy winner, a Stanley Cup for the Blackhawks in 1961, and that ended a long drought for the Hawks, who had not won a cup prior to that since 1938. Neil, you saw Glenn Hall play. What do you remember?
Well, I was very young at the time, but I do remember him playing and being very acrobatic. That's the one thing about Glenn Hall. Remember, goalies back then, everything was done by reflexes, and shots weren't taken as high as they are today. They were normally, most shots were on the ice. But Glenn Hall played with no mask, and I'll never forget him and Jacques Plante. Imagine those two together for the St. Louis Blues. No wonder why they made it to the final. Of course, somebody had to from the West back in those early days of expansion. But he was a great goaltender. Very, as I said, very acrobatic.
Hall was the number one goalie for the Blues in the 69-70 season, and I happened to see St. Louis for the very first time in November of 1969. But the goalie for the Blues that night wasn't Glenn Hall, wasn't Jacques Plante, it was Ernie Wakely, who made his NHL debut that night. It was a 6-4 loss against the Rangers in which Vic Hatfield had a hat trick, and his third goal came when he flipped the puck from behind the net over the goal. It hit Wakely in the back and dribbled in, and people said, that's a hat trick. And that's what I thought a hat trick was. I didn't know it was 3 goals in a game. I thought it had something to do with a trick shot that a player made.
Yeah, and today we've got Trevor Zegras with the Michigan. But no, that's a great story. That's Vic Hadfield, of course, held the goal-scoring record for the Rangers up until Adam Graves broke it in 1994.
Correct. Scored 50 in 71-72. So some great memories to wrap up this show. And with that, we say goodbye for now, but a special thanks to Bill Guerin, the general manager of Team USA and the Minnesota Wild, for joining us.
Thanks to all the listeners that are out there, that you people that are listening, please give us a review if you've got a chance. And you can reach us if you want to directly on email, neil@nhlwraparound.com or vic@nhlwraparound.com. All of our podcasts are on all the platforms you can find: Apple Podcast, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or YouTube. And if you see us on YouTube, please subscribe. Just push that subscribe button. It doesn't cost anything. You can also find us on X. I'm at NYC Neil, and we're on Instagram at NHL Wraparound and on TikTok. So please check us out.
Our website, NHLwraparound.com, which has a complete history of our podcast. And in our blog section, Patrick Hoffman's latest is on the New Jersey Devils struggles and Smith's picks. So we open this show celebrating your 5-0 record for the first time, and your first birthday present being Matt Zuccarello scoring in overtime to give you that 5-0 record. And now you have a gift from me, which
right here,
I'd like for you to open as part of the podcast.
I've been waiting to open this beautifully wrapped gift to see what it is that my partner would send me on my 35th birthday.
Yeah, story keeps getting better with that age.
And let's see what we have here. Whoa! Where the heck did you get this?
So let's turn it to the camera so our viewers can see this. It is a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle, and your wife, Margaret, told me that you love puzzles, and there are 5 images that make up this jigsaw puzzle. It's Stefan Matteau's double overtime winning goal in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Final in 94 against the New Jersey Devils. Brian Leach's goal to open Game 7 against the Vancouver Canucks. Mark Messier celebrating his game winner. The scoreboard showing triple zeros. And Neil holding the Stanley Cup. So there you go. Happy birthday.
Terrific gift. Thanks, partner.
Enjoy. We'll be back with NHL Wraparound short shifts on Monday. So enjoy the hockey weekend. And Neil, make sure that you are feted.
Okay.
Take care, all.
Thanks for joining us on the NHL Wraparound podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date on all the NHL action.